Welcome, everyone. This is the Wellbeing Economy podcast. My name is Forrest Wilson, and I'm here with Caitlin Faas. Hi, Caitlin.
Hi, Forrest.
This is the first episode of a new podcast called the Wellbeing Economy Podcast. And for anyone listening, welcome. We are here mainly to discover what this podcast is. And this is almost a behind the scenes recording of us getting clarity on what we're even doing here. And we're intending in this recording to share with you some of what's brought us here, some of the history that's led to this moment, what we're currently with now, and what we sense or imagine or project onto the future, potentially even download from the future in terms of what this might make possible and where this might head. So that's it. That's a little bit of structural framing. Caitlin, do you want to chime in? How's this to hear?
Yeah, it's the reminder to come from that future place when there are many episodes and programs are full and people are listening later and we're in the future. So it's presencing myself there and using that as a practice right now because that's what we encourage people to do.
Yeah. Yeah, so maybe it would be good to start with speaking about what a well-being economy is. And as I say that, the first thing I want to say is that for the most part, we're discovering that still. So I want to share some of what I am noticing and some things that are happening. And Caitlin, I invite you into this as well. And the deepest invitation to everyone who listens to this podcast is to get involved in the well-being economy and to come experiment and struggle and celebrate and go through the experience of what it's like to embody a different way of being in relationship and being in exchange and creating in the world. That's the deepest invitation here. So, saying all that, a couple of things that come to mind in terms of what's a well being economy. Number one is that in a well being economy, we speak a lot about where we're relating with our experience from. And there's an object that we call the ground of well-being. So I'm going to speak to you from the ground of well-being in this moment. For me, the ground of well-being is found in our deepest depths. We sink down into our deepest depths and find the primordial ground, the ocean floor. And from this place, from this place, we can be in relationship and embody a well-being economy. This is where we get really intimate with the dynamics of creation itself. And when we start to foreground and pay attention to where we're relating with our experience from, we notice these different vibrational tones, different realities, different realms, and ways of orienting with our experience. So I'll pause here and check in with you, Caitlin. What's happening?
Yeah, it's helping me drop in, and for me, the feelings arise or the sensorial experience of a lot of openness, expansion, and yet feeling my feet. Like I'm here, present, not dissociated, and open. And often, actually, for me, a lot of silence arises in this space.
I'm enjoying giving ourselves and also our listeners a moment to enjoy the silence that I feel like my experience was it just washed through me as you spoke about it. So there's the well-being economy game that we're playing. There's actually many well-being economy games. One of them is a few things we're tracking and paying attention to, taking note of, and doing things to support is number one, how many people are relating from the ground of well-being. So I'm not in any way claiming to be the only person, or Caitlin and I are not claiming to be the only people who are relating with life from the ground of well-being. Every single person in the world has access to the ground of well-being. This is not some special walled off. I mean, it might be special. It's amazing, and it's not. It's universally acceptable to everyone in every moment. So if you are listening to this, you are you have access to the ground of well-being. We invite you to just notice where we're speaking to you from, and invite you to drop down into your depths and see what it's like to listen and receive your experience, to listen and receive this podcast from the ground of well-being, and notice what happens in your sensorial experience, in your relationship with this moment. So metric one we're tracking is how many people are relating with life from the ground of well-being. The second thing we're tracking is what percentage of the time we can come into a podcast like this and we can drop into the ground of well-being and listen to a recording for, let's say, an hour, and then go about our week and not relate from the ground of well-being the rest of the week until the next episode comes out. Let's, in a hypothetical reality where there's one episode a week, I wouldn't hold us to that rigid scheduling structure. But what we notice is that in the work that we do, we share the ground of well-being with people in the same way that we are with you now. There's lots of activations that we have. There's ways that a bunch of different ways we can support people accessing the ground of well-being. We have lots of practices and tools and modalities, activations, meditations, guided journeys, these sorts of things. Then people have a choice. Do I want to relate with my life from here? Right? And if I do, there's some consequences to that decision. Right? And so the second metric we're tracking of how much time am I relating from the ground of well-being, it involves navigating the transition from whatever was previously my ground, my previous ground, right? Whatever was my homeostasis, my center of gravity, my normal, navigating to this new normal of the ground of well-being. And from consistent, persistent access to the ground of well-being, we start to have it take over as our place that we experience life from. And the third and final, for now, metric that we're tracking is how potently and palpably, how strongly are we emanating the vibrational tone and the qualities that emerge when we start to relate with life from this place. So there's a potency factor of a spectrum of potency to potency and intensity of how much we're emanating and uh, well, I'll just say emanating, how much we're emanating and radiating. That's the word I'm looking for. Emanating and radiating this field of consciousness.
And you often use that metaphor of a Wi-Fi router. We're emanating to beacon rather than I have a historical character of Caitlin that loves to like chase after or rush after something or I gotta go do all the things. And this is not that. And that's part of why the Wi-Fi router or bowling ball in the middle of the trampoline metaphor kind of can bring me back to center too of, oh yeah, that
Mm-hmm.
magnetizing place.
Mm-hmm.
People want to be around me from that space. Work flows from that space.
Mm-hmm.
Relationships flow from that space.
Yeah. Yeah, beautiful. Thanks for bringing both of these metaphors. So the bowling ball metaphor was spoken by Hannah Taylor in our recent hackathon. So last month we did a hackathon in Austin, Texas. Maybe 20, I want to say 23 of us got together in Austin for 3.5 days. And we had 3.5 days to be in relationship and create from this ground of well-being and have an embodied experiential experience of of what it's like to be in relationship and to create together from here. And Hannah spoke about the bowling ball in the center of the trampoline, meaning if you imagine a bowling ball in the center of a trampoline, it weighs down in the center. And if you put a bunch of tennis balls out on the periphery, they're going to come from the outside of the trampoline down to the bowling ball in the center. And so the metaphor is the more that we drop down our center of gravity and our weight into our deepest depths, the more we start to magnetize. I love this word. The more we start to magnetize the tennis balls, right? All the things that are for us. You spoke to relationships, the opportunities. In a well-being economy, we're talking about clients and money um, and ultimately a whole new world, quite frankly. So it's a brilliant metaphor, and I can speak more too to the Wi-Fi router, but let me pause here and come back to you.
Yeah, the naming it and really being able to visualize it and feel it also gives that contrast of shedding a way of being that then also means some things have to go. In the well-being economy, a lot of things might leave or disappear or get integrated in a different way. So it helps remember that it's coming to, and other things will go away that aren't for us.
Can you say more, Kaylin, about the things that we shed and let go of as we embody the well-being economy?
Yeah, I think for me, part of this process has been if I had parts of me that really were after a particular identity, like I really had an identity as a professor. And so when I stepped into practicing coming from the ground of well-being more, living in our well-being economy space, being around others who embody this, it started to it was a recognition of like, oh, I built that up and propped it up as an identity that I was clinging to and something that was very achievement focused and all of that. And so for me, that ended up being an identity to let go of and release.
Mm.
And it doesn't mean everybody needs to shed their identity of a job. It was just one for me that was a recognition of like, oh yeah, letting that go, and also recognizing and rising like I'm still very much a teacher and there's some aspects of being a professor that have definitely stuck around.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, as you're speaking, I get the feeling that it's like before there was something defining that I was like I get this gesture of being had by something or like I'm like wearing this costume, whereas now it feels like the underlying gifts are still here, but it doesn't feel as defining. It feels liberated.
Yes. How many costumes was I wearing and putting up fronts of, look at me with all these costumes? And then some people, especially in this space, can see through all of that and see the, resident you or like who I really am. And then that kind of also wants to shed costumes
Mhm.
of, oh, and or play with costumes, but not be so like, don't take my jacket because then like I won't know what to do with myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I like the playfulness and it feels fun and it reminds me of last night my roommates and I were all making fun of ourselves. We were all playing characters of these ways that we pretend to be, I don't know, not okay or not good enough or whatever. It was actually quite hilarious to like put these on and dance with them in a really enjoyable way.
Yeah, the play. There's so much play and lightheartedness and in that expansion it doesn't have kind of a rigid like I've also been rigid or wrapped up tightly, a lot of tension in the body that then loosens its grip in the well-being economy. So these are possibilities for our audience is you're around more of this work, there's possibilities of letting go of tension, having more fun, playfulness in the worlds that you've built up.
Right. Yeah, so beautifully said. In the worlds that you've built up, in the worlds that already exist. There's something here for me too, as you're sharing, Caitlin. Let me ask you this. How, in the way that we speak about it, how long have you been aware of the well-being economy?
That's probably been on my radar for a couple years, following your work and watching it. And so it's only been a couple months that we've been in relationship about projects and building our emerging future. But even if I tap into a wider ground of well-being, I have built up a meditation practice that I love over time that that's been years in the making. And in that process, though, part of it has been, well, what does that look like off the pillow?
Mhm.
So it was one thing to be able to touch awareness in meditation, but am I still yelling at a teenager or yelling at a partner about something? Am I really integrating that into my life? Has been the past couple of years bringing that online.
Yeah, we oftentimes talk about coming off the meditation pillow and into the marketplace, or coming from the mountaintop into the marketplace. It's taking the practice that we've been doing in our meditation practice, or our, there's all kinds of practices, but taking what we usually do in our private moments and bringing them into the world, really showing up in the marketplace, in our relationships with our families, in our parenting, in our offers, our sales, our marketing, our product development. This is real deal, practical, applied consciousness work. And I mean, Caitlin, you are, in terms of identities, right? You're a published author. You have a PhD. You have been a professor. Like, I mean, what you are seem to be going all in on the well-being economy and uh, helping to grow this way of being, this consciousness, this what living life and being in relationship from here makes possible, the vision that we're holding for the kind of world that we can collectively make manifest from this place. Like, can you, what's compelling you to do this?
Yeah, I've always had a through line of being in service to others and being a helper. And there's a shadow side to that, of course. But in general, this idea of for others, like we're together in this. And so, when I'm thinking about for others, I can really light up. And the future really lights me up too, of what's possible. What does this mean for future generations? A lot of people helped create this world that exists for me right now. How am I continuing to pass that along and pay it forward in many ways? So that's always been a through line. And so after I was a professor, I've spent a lot of time coaching individuals and private practice in a lot of ways. But this well-being economy, recognizing like, oh, we can do this together, and there's different people with different skill sets. I've always loved being on teams, so being able to show up in teams of people and bring skill sets I have but integrate that with other skill sets and unwinding a lot of like intellectual brain on a stick. So there can be a lot of thinking teams of people. Let's just think about the future. But our well-being economy here is whole person.
Mm.
And we're integrating all the levels, all the layers, not just cognitively what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, we're not just imagining the future or talking about what a well-being economy could be like. We're really living it together. We're really doing it. We're really doing it. It's interesting because there's a couple of things that I want to double click on in what you shared. One is, I mean, you have quite a lot of experience in different domains. You're speaking about your meditation practice. You're a coach. You've, I mean, as an author, as a professor, you have quite a developed business background. You also have quite a developed personal developmental journey, spiritual awakening journey. You've done a lot of consciousness work, and I want to double click on that because mm, the well-being economy seems to attract a lot of people who have done this. They're like, man, I have studied all the leadership development frameworks. I've gone on retreats. I have traveled the world. I've started multiple business, potentially made tons of money, and I'm looking for the next thing, right? Like I have in some ways outgrown the practices, the protocols, the frameworks, the books, the mental models, like what is next for me? And that I want to double click on that because we seem to attract a lot of people who are leaning into that. I don't exactly know what's next, but I feel done with like doing a bunch of practices in private, or at least I might still do those, but I want something more. And I don't want to just read another book. I even want to say I don't want to just listen to another podcast, right? Like, and here we are recording a podcast. Um, but we attract a lot of people who are actually have done quite a lot of meditation or spiritual practice, have deeply immersed themselves in these worlds, and yet are going, okay, I'm wanting to step in even further, show up even more. There's there's a new moment available for me here.
100%. And I think it's that the leaders that are showing up, like if I'll speak for myself, I've been in a lot of rooms of leadership and since I was young and just kept leaning into it. And at some point there's also becomes this, I don't want to be the smartest person in the room in quotes, right? Or I don't want to be the only one who can hold the space for this room of people. I want to be in a room where we're all doing that together, where we're all connected to the idea that we know how to resource ourselves and be adults, as you say, of I know how to take care of myself when I collapse or ask for help when I collapse. And so, if we're in a room full of other people when that's happening, that also have those capacities and capabilities, then it just up levels the whole environment and what's possible.
Yeah, so in the well-being economy, we look at an adult, we define an adult as when we can contribute more to a system than we need from the system. We all have needs, and our maturation process and one of the lines of development in maturation and in becoming an adult is cultivating the capacity to contribute more to systems than we need from it. And this actually gets into the Wi-Fi router metaphor that you used earlier. Our This well-being economy and the offers that we're putting together, the different ways that we are constructing support for people who are in the well-being economy and for people who are entering the well-being economy is to support us being increasingly more and more and more resourced so that our collective field, our collective Wi-Fi router is embodying more and emanating more resourcedness, which shows up in all sorts of ways. For now, I'll just leave it as resourceness.
Yeah. And feeling resourced and being around other people who are resourced then catches as like, I want to do more of this regularly. And this is possible in my daily relationships. And I don't want it to sound like it's like because we can have this in our well-being economy, we're also it's spreading to daily life. It doesn't mean a separation from the people I interact with at the grocery store or events that I'm leading. It doesn't become like, oh no, not them, right? It's not an us versus them. And it's that Wi-Fi router, like this is going out everywhere and being mindful of that, like let's keep emanating rather than collapsing or giving up or deciding I'm going to wall myself off.
it really lights me up listening to you, Caitlin, because I feel like speaking as one of the people who's gone really far on these different journeys, the personal development and spiritual awakening journeys, the healing and shadow and trauma work journeys, the business and soul purpose journeys, like all these different adventures that we go on. It's like I feel like we have found the thing that we're all deep down really looking for, this culmination of all the different ways that we play in a way that we actually can live day in and day out, moment by moment. Like it's an ever present, always here experience that's available to us. Like you said, whether we're interacting with a cashier at the grocery store or cooking food for our family, being in a relationship with our children, selling millions of dollars worth of our product in the marketplace. It's an all day, everyday invitation to be in relationship from a well-being economy. And I just I have to breathe a sigh of relief about it. I mean, it just feels like whew, finally, like welcome home, you know. Like it's good to be here.
And there's more to come.
And there's more to come. It's an amazing thing about life, this feeling of it's just better than I ever would have fathomed, and it keeps getting better, like this fruition process, right? Like somehow a sense of feeling complete keeps getting more complete. Like a sense of feeling whole keeps getting more whole. And it's this is really rich. This is really rich. This is rich stuff that to get to experience. It's kind of the I would say the dream, quite frankly. We might not even be aware it's the dream, but I would argue it is it's a real privilege and yeah, just wow.
Hmm. It makes me think of sometimes people refer to feeling empty, or I remember feeling that along the way of an emptiness and just like a even people when we use the word the void or just like what this is all pointless or uh, being in the well-being economy feels like the opposite of that. It's what you just described of like, oh, I don't need to feel empty. I can feel whole and complete and like that rich, fertile soil.
Yeah. Yeah, I love when you say rich, fertile soil. That's like we use these words all the time, plump, juicy, like savory. There's these really rich sensorial experiences and I feel like we come into contact with true abundance. I mean, colors get more vibrant, life gets more zesty. Like these are the kinds of words we use, like flavors get more flavorful, sound and music seems to have more texture. It's like there's just such a more rich nuance. Lush is a word I use a lot, like lush experience with this moment right now, right here, right now in this moment. There's so much more available to us in terms of how deeply we can enjoy the experience we're having. And from this comes a tremendous amount of well-being and fulfillment and satiation.
Yeah, it's like recognizing we could be, when you use these words like lush and we're talking about the soil, it makes it sound like it could, I could imagine it could be easy to decide, oh, they just mean like they're in Hawaii all the time, or they just mean they're in Mexico or something. Like that's what they're talking about. It's like, no, I think a lot of our listeners have stood in tropical, amazing places or had lots and lots of money standing, they're like in the penthouse room and recognizing, like, wait, this isn't quite it because it's empty on the inside. It's like part what Forrest you're saying is that richness and lushness and all that is coming from the inside and shows up no matter where you are located in the world.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, it's one of the things I love about the well-being economy. It's available to us in every moment, and it really is, in my experience, the most refined spiritual or awakening practice we can participate in. It's real time, real deal stuff. So yeah, I love what you're speaking to here, really coming from the fulfillment, coming from the lush and juicy love, quite frankly, to take a risk here. And I'm just going to bring in the word love. Yeah. Yeah. And for our business audience, right? For people who it's so common that are like rah, 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 great. We can sit around all the time feeling nice and lush and plump and juicy, but like, what about results? What about business outcomes, etc.? Like, yes, welcome to this voice in me. Welcome to this voice in you. Uh, we are here for creating products and services and businesses and economies and marketplaces that support people to embody more of this experience. The well-being economy for me, the economy of the future, the economy we're embodying moving forward is that we experience more well-being and generativity and love and flow and healing as a product of interfacing with the marketplace. The products and services and people and businesses we interface with support us to have more love and awakening and wholeness and well-being in our life. So we are quite literally embodying the new marketplace, the new way of doing business in this moment.
Yes. And I think that's what I love. That's one of the things I love about this environment so much is there are a lot of people talking about well-being from a place of somehow it easily sounds like, and we all have to be poor to do that. Like it can be like, oh, right, I want to contribute and I want to, it can be tempting, especially if somebody from the business world is looking at that, like, oh, okay, what's happening over here? And then it's a leaning into, but wait, is anyone making anything? Is anyone producing? We still have companies, we still have things to run, the world to run, basically. And so, what does that mean? And what do I want as an individual in that? That's also welcome and cherished, not suppressed as no, no, Caitlin, you can't have anything nice while we all figure out how to make money or something. I don't even know what that sounds like anymore. But in our well-being economy, right, in this space, it's very welcome the desires and uh, creating products that serve people and making money and growing a healthy, thriving economy.
Yeah, and it helps me connect a little bit to some of the through line that brought us here. And to be honest, Caitlin to our listeners, we were probably going to need a couple of episodes to trace the history that's brought us here. So I'm gonna shed some light on at least a couple of tracks here, and there's more. So there's a lot really that's come together and synthesized and integrated to create this. mm, Body of work, this offering, this discovery of quite frankly always been here, uh, what's always just been waiting to be discovered in every moment. Um, but one of those is, I spent a lot of time in the last decade coaching business people and also working with well-being practitioners, also healers, psychotherapists, people doing consciousness work, awakening work, these kinds of things. And there got to be a point that I would hear a lot of people say of, hey, I really have maximized my business and my money and also my well-being. And I feel like I have to either lose some of my money or my business results to get more well-being, or I have to sacrifice my well-being to get money. Is there another way? And I feel like this is such a beautiful question and doorway into the well-being economy of what happens as mm, I've had so many clients tell me they feel like they had two separate lives. I have my well-being life and I have my business life. And the discovery of the well-being economy, which just to ground this in practical 3D reality, like to for anybody who's potentially thinking this is woo-woo, I have hosted well-being economy workshops in Fortune 500 companies, work with investors, startup clients who've raised multiple millions of dollars, building leading edge technology companies, training well-being practitioners all over the world. This is I really want to double click and emphasize this is not just some concept or idea or like white paper about what could be. This is really happening. This has been happening for years, and we're creating this podcast to share it more widely and invite you as the listener into it more fully. But I just want to say this is real. This is happening, and 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 it invites us into a way of being where living from the ground of well-being we can experience more well-being, more money, more business outcomes, and more fulfillment. And like we said, completion can keep feeling more complete. Fulfillment continues. It's wholeness feels more whole. I don't have to sacrifice my well-being to get money, and I don't have to sacrifice my well-being to get money. It's actually like an entirely different relationship with reality where this thing takes over my life. We give ourselves over to something way more intelligent, way more wise, which ultimately we actually are, of course, our deeper nature. Um, but it shows us, in my personal experience, it has opened up and made a way of being with life and has manifested a life that I get to relate with day in and day out that's beyond anything I could have fathomed. Like 5 or 10 years ago, I would not have been able to overestimate I would not have been able to overestimate what's possible for my life. And I say this to people all the time, like you cannot overestimate what's possible for you from here. It will continue to blow your mind and your heart wide open.
Taking that in for a minute. It's that reminder too. We're showing each other what's that example of an example of what's possible. So as you lean more into that, Forrest, as people in different programs and clients and the offerings, and we lean in as a group, we're showing each other, like, look, here it is.
Here it is. And it is today is February 17th, 2025. And if we open up to the world we're walking around in. I mean, in the political landscape that we're living in, the technological landscape that we're living in, there has never, in my opinion, there's never been a better time to go all in on who you truly are. The greatest job security, the greatest decision that we can make for ourselves in our life is going all in on who we really are. And the well-being economy creates the opportunity to be in a collective and a network and a global community of people who are going all in on really in this moment right now being the truth of who we are in our own unique expression in our own unique way.
Yeah, and that's one of the benefits that I see of we can see in each other when we feel alive and mirror it back to the other person. Like right now, you're so alive, and like this is you, and cherish it and celebrate it. And then we can internalize it a little more of like, oh yeah, this is me. I was getting distracted or I forgot or whatever. And so being in collectives like this empowers that going all in on who we are.
And it's a game. I imagine some folks are listening to this and going, "Yeah, duh, of course. I do this with people, and we know that, right? Like we're not crazy or anything. There's a refinement process that happens with this. As we do this more and more, we keep noticing more subtle and nuanced things, and that's a lot of the juice here. I feel is that the more subtle and nuanced, the more we play this game, the more we embody it, the more refined things that we're in relationship with, the more refined dynamics that we're connected to. And so I just want to presence this as well.
It keeps going deeper. It's like for anybody who maybe feels like they've hit a wall or they've reached some kind of end, this space really opens up the idea of like there isn't. It keeps going. Infinite possibilities here.
We just did this 3.5 day hackathon in Austin, and I mean, one of the most one of the most consistent pieces of feedback I got from the 20 some people who came was, basically, I'm paraphrasing here, was something along the lines of, how is it possible 20 something people who've never met each other could come together and go that deep and have that much intimacy and feel that much belonging, and like, what the heck just happened, right? Like that was really something special. And I just want to bring light to this because it's available to all of us. It's like most of us are walking around in the world interfacing with each other in costumes. We're having really superficial, surface level conversations. We're speaking to somebody's role from our own role. We're not having the deeper human experience and even soul experience that's possible for us in relationship with other people and with our life. And so, yeah, as Caitlin mentioned, it can be such a like it reminds me of when you just kind of like lose the color in life, right? Like when things get stale. We use the word dehydrated a lot, lifeless, like when things just get stagnant and gray. There's this is a really great place to find the color again. It's a good place to come alive and remember. Like there's so many moments of remembering, of just like, oh yeah, this is what it was like when I was a kid, or oh yeah, this is who I am. Oh yeah, that's what it's like to feel seen. That's what it's like to share or care about something. Literally, that's what it's like to care about something. I forgot. I forgot what it's like to care about something so much that I'll just get, whatever. Anyway, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, and to not dread something, right? Or not, well, the amount of people that dread Monday,
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm dreading going back to work tomorrow, and oh, I have to go to that networking thing. Just the way that it gets spoken about, and like, oh, like what? Why? Kind of like getting exposed to, oh, I want to be here. I love this. I'm excited. I have aliveness. Then puts that in contrast. So I can start showing up that way everywhere.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And I mean, on a personal note, right? It really is like this has taken over my life completely, and it's been the case for years now. And it's a treasure. It's a treasure of a life at this point. I mean, there's kind of never a dull moment these days. Um, I I almost could take it for granted. I almost could take it for granted what it's like to feel lit up and really on fire and enlivened by my work, what I care about, getting to do things like this. It feels like being a little kid on Christmas morning every day, right? Like it's like a consistent, persistent experience of that kind of like, oh wow, like Santa came. Like there's just this kind of excitement. There's this excitement and like something's about to happen. It's almost like a surprise is coming. Um,
In contrast, though, to I think there's an experience for a lot of people, and I had it of roller coaster. It feels like, okay, now I'm starting to feel alive again. Oh, but wait, I just really crashed and collapsed hard. And so part of what you're speaking about in my mind, Forrest, is a different type of integration. Not just Forrest is riding the roller coaster every day
right.
of emotions or expansion, collapse. It's integrated. There's ways of being that doesn't feel like a roller coaster.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know the roller coaster well. That's a experience I've had a lot in my life. And in one way, you could say it's a phase. Like you could say that expansion collapse is a phase, and then we start to stabilize on the other side of it. So that can look like doing shadow work and depth work and cleanup work, and to work with the ways that we pull ourselves out of the more expanded states that we're in. And then the other side of it is so that's more of a stability on the other side of the collapsing. And then there's actually a more pure form of the exact same experience which doesn't go away. It's more like an inhale and an exhale. It's an expansion and a contraction. It's a natural rhythm of life that I am learning to appreciate more and more. Like I can hear the waves in the ocean actually as I'm saying this. It's like waves come up to the shore and then they go back out into the ocean. And so there is that same exact rhythm that you're speaking about, Caitlin, but it's more, I mean, you can even feel it in my tone of voice right now. It's like it's got more of a harmony to it. It's got more of an ebb and flow. It's not that expansion, contraction, expansion, like right. That feels a certain way. But get big, collapse, get big, collapse. Peak experience, crash, peak experience, crash. This is way more subtle and rich, and it does have that quality of opening and expanding and then exhaling and coming back. So in some ways we resolve it and get to the other side of it. And in some ways it's just a natural part of the rhythm of life
Hmm.
cycle.
I hear a witnessing in that of more listening to music rather than in it, or watching the waves rather than getting pummeled by them. And uh, like my body's breathing right now, but I'm not like hanging on to every inhale, exhale, like what's going to happen? Is she going to keep breathing?
Right,
A
right.
watching and a witnessing that uh, takes practice.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's I mean I hear the words letting go as I'm listening to you. There's a real letting go and um like giving into and allowing ourselves to be held by something much bigger than ourselves, which of course we also are. So maybe we can speak, if you're listening and you've made it to here, like, wow, congratulations, this is spectacular. Thanks for being here with us and just riding the waves, riding the roller coaster of this conversation. We are, as I mentioned at the beginning, we're discovering in relationship with each other and also in relationship with you. How do we talk about this? What's useful to share? How's it landing, right? So hearing from you is actually really helpful for us to connect with you more, and there's something really precious and, dare I say, sacred, right? I feel like that word has been uh, almost arguably overused, but I'll say precious and sacred here. And um, yeah, obviously, just curious how it's landing and what's happening for you as we're sharing. What's, Caitlin, what do we share here? I mean, I want to tell people we have an incubator for the well-being economy. So if you're listening to this and you're going, okay, this is cool. I'm interested. I want to learn more. I want you to know that we have the incubator that I'm mentioning is one of several forms of support and structure that we have for people who want to dive deeper and get more involved with this body of work and explore what it's like to relate from the ground of well-being and embody a well-being economy in community, in relationship. And um, yeah, we're meeting with people every day who are getting more involved with this in different ways. So um, yeah,
Yeah, and it's a active process. So you listener taking that step, we'll put the links and how to reach out attached to all of this, however you're listening to it or watching it. And so it's that you're taking an active step, and we'll meet you right there. And then we will be co-creating an experience and tailoring it to what you need. We want to hear your vision. We want to be in collaboration about what's next for you rather than kind of like, well, here's a product, right? What would be the old way for us to be like, here's a product, you can consume it, and then that's it. It was just this transaction, and the end. Like, this isn't that. This is collaboration, co creation, leaning in,
yeah,
showing up as yourself.
yeah. Yeah, I mean the real exaggerated and this doesn't mean untrue, but the real intense versions of the old way are you're not good enough, you're missing something, we have something that you don't. In order for you to succeed or be successful, you need to buy what we have so we can give you what you need. We know better than you do. We're going to give you the answers. And on the other side of whatever it is we have, your life's going to be better. That's kind of the old way. That's I'm just gonna take a breath because of how intense that is. You know, like sheesh, sheesh.
Wears us out just thinking about it.
Yeah, our way is a little different than that. We are going um, in this moment right now. You have access to everything you need, right? Everything we need is already here. We can support you to access what you already have more fully. We are playing this game full out all day, every day, and every moment, and might be able to help illuminate some of the territory that you're exploring. We're providing a container and a community and forms of support that can help us when we start to really play this game. It feels like being an Olympic athlete in life. Like it's there there's a lot of phases to this. Oftentimes when we start to play in the well-being economy, we really need a recovery phase from whatever we've been doing before. That's very common. And then as we start to connect to our own innateness and our own life force and our own vitality and well-being, it can start to feel like we're living in an all day, everyday peak experience, right? Like we can be in a flow state that's ever present. We're just living life in flow. And what it's like to do business from here, what it's like to emerge an offering from here, what it's like to do marketing and hire people and lead and organize a team and get things done. This is all new. It's all different. The way that we relate with the world, the meaning making, the language that we use, the kinds of sales processes. It's just every bit of it is different. I mean, every bit of it is different. And so this is a community of practice. This is a community of exploration. And this is a place where we can um, learn and grow and create and thrive together. Truly, like really do it. That's what we're building here and holding space to make manifest together.
Yes, such a breath of fresh air too, of like when someone's being with you in this our well-being economy and they aren't approaching it as you have problems to fix, right? Just even there are problems to fix and solve is a whole paradigm that when it's not present, when it's really like it's already here. If you have what you need, we're coming from the future. It shifts that into, oh, wow, look at all these possibilities.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I was speaking with someone recently. It's like we go from being like this is my apple and I'm clinging to my apple. This is my idea, this is my project, this is my identity, this is my piece of thought that's you know what I mean, that I like my identity and my worth, my value, my belonging are tied up in it. We go from being that to being the apple tree, right? That uh we're just continually manifesting more and more gifts and things to share, apples of wisdom, gold nuggets to give the world. And then even deeper than that, we become creation itself that's manifesting the tree and the apples, taking shape, taking form as the tree and as the apples and as everything, really. um, yeah. So we'll let this be enough for today. The website will, like Caitlin said, we'll link our website and our social media, these kind of things in the show notes. Whether you're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, whatever, we invite you to follow this exploration. The website for the incubator we mentioned is wellbeingeconomyincubator.com. We'll have that linked in the show notes. And let's hear from you. Let us know how this landed. Um, you will very quickly learn from us. We do not want to, uh, we're looking for people who are the right fit. We're not going to, if you get in touch with us, we don't do coercive, manipulative, try to twist your arm into doing something you don't want to do. We're here for you. We care about you. We want to support you where you are in your developmental evolutionary journey. And if yeah, let us know how we can be here for you. And thanks for listening.
Thank you. Excited to meet you.
Is there anything else you want to share before we conclude for today, Caitlin?
If you made it this far, something's resonating. So let's go.
Yeah, let's go. I love it. Okay, everyone. Love you all. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being you. We'll see you next time.